Today I'm going to tell you the story of a witch named Harriet Boggs. So it's the 1900s and her story takes us back to the small town of Whispering Pines. Now Whispering Pines is a relatively close-knit community, agricultural, small town, and generally speaking, the town looks out for each other. Now one important thing to note about this town is that it sits on a relatively large creek bed. Now, up the creek about 3 miles as the crow flies is a town called Taylor Creek. Now at this point in time, Taylor Creek was still really underdeveloped. It was heavily wooded, lots of wildlife running around, and not a place you'd want to be caught by yourself, especially after dark. But of course, there are always those people who thrive in these environments, and Harriet Boggs was one of those. Now, because of Harriet's mysterious ways, her desire to live alone, and her relative reclusiveness, there were a lot of rumors that started to come out about her. Some reports claimed that the closer you got to Harriet's homestead, the more uneasy you would start to feel, and it would feel as though you were being followed. In fact, there are other reports that claim seeing cats all over the woods staring at them as though they were being watched. Other accounts would claim that as they got closer to Harriet's house, they would start seeing mysterious fireballs on top of the water. Now, of course, this could have just been methane gas. This is a very natural phenomenon, but people said it happened more than it should have, and it was reported being seen quite a bit. In addition to this, these fireballs appeared to move at will, as though warning whoever was coming nearer to stay away from Harriet's house. The closer they got, the bigger it would grow. Again, not sure how true it is, but it is a little weird. Other reports include seeing statues in the woods like the one behind me, or hearing an ever-present humming or singing, although there was no one around for miles. Now, as these events started to get more common, these tales started to flow out of Taylor Creek, where Harriet lived, and into the towns around her. So as these tales started to spread, Harriet became a figure of folklore more than anything. Parents would use her stories to get their children to behave, stay out of the woods, listen, but it also became kind of a good campfire tale to tell as well. That was until the flood, though. Now, this was an unprecedented flood, unpredictable, once-in-a-lifetime event. In fact, a once-in-a-100-year event. But because they couldn't justify anything causing this level of devastation and catastrophe, such as living below the water table, they determined that it was only one thing and one thing only: witchcraft. In fact, it wasn't just any old witchcraft, it was Harriet Boggs. And what made it even worse was the fact that the flood didn't just bring devastation, it brought mosquitoes, and mosquitoes brought their own special gift, and that was yellow fever. And as the town started getting sick, people started dying, and of course that made people even more upset. Then to put the cherry on all of the chaos is the fact that the town's only doctor, Dr. Beauregard Jackson, passed away due to the fever, and this left the village utterly devastated. And of course, because this place was utterly devastated, they had suffered extreme loss, they needed a scapegoat. Now, this is where the story takes a dark turn, because in their grief, the men of the town decided that somebody needed to pay, and that somebody was Harriet Boggs. So they decided that they were going to go and get her and string her up. Now, it would be a courtesy if she even made it to the gallows, but we know that wasn't going to happen. But anyways, the men decided they would pursue Harriet, but there was something that stopped them. And that something was the fact that it was getting dark. Now, according to these men, Harriet had dominion over the dark, and it wouldn't be wise to meet somebody in their element. So they decided they would wait until morning, and then they would go and find Harriet and make her face justice. Now, all that night, the men waited up, anticipating their chance for justice. But they weren't alone. There were howls and cackles outside of the window, cats, weird figures. Everything seemed to be surrounding the town, just a feeling of utter darkness. Now, morning finally came for the men, and as they prepared to go out and exact their revenge, they noticed that there was a black cauldron in the middle of their town square. And as they got closer to it, they noticed there was a note on it that said, "Drink me." Now, of course, nobody wants to drink mysterious liquid from a mysterious cauldron, but desperate times call for desperate measures. So they called every member of the town out, and everybody got a spoonful, and as they were drinking it, they noticed there was a change in the weather. Previously murky and kind of muggy outside, the sky cleared and there was bright sun. So on this very cloudy day, the men called a town meeting, and everyone in the town came out to see what they wanted to talk about. And of course, as they got there, they noticed the cauldron as well. Now, the men instructed them to do one thing, and that was take a drink. So everybody passed the ladle around. Don't worry about any other viruses, just drink the juice. And everybody in the town did so. And miraculously, as they all started to pass the ladle around, the sun started to come. Again, these people had just experienced some massive storms and flooding, so the weather was still pretty bad for them. But like I said, as they started to pass the ladle, the sun came out, things appeared to cool off just a little bit, and you could feel the overall mood in the town just get a little bit lighter. Even better, in a few days, people miraculously started to recover. They gave this juice to everybody in the town who could drink it, and if they couldn't drink it, they would just pour it down their throat. So the nurses at this point were pretty happy. Again, they had even lost their doctor, so things were really starting to look up for this town. Now at this point, because the men were pretty satisfied with what had happened with the cauldron, they decided they wanted to go and thank, again, the magic that they had accused her of using to kill the townspeople and cause the flood was now magic they were happy to have around them and magic they were thankful for. And they weren't crazy, and I will say, given the time, this was a pretty decent move on their end to thank her as opposed to... So the men set out to go find Harriet and give her a sincere thank you. But the funny thing is, as they approached where her house was supposed to be, there was a message on an old tree stump that had fallen. And as they approached the note, the men decided it was probably best to go ahead and turn around. And so they did so. And sadly, Harriet never got their thank you. But that's because on the parchment note they found tacked to the stump, it said, "Don't come looking again." And so they never did. But anyways, let me know if you've heard the story of Harriet Boggs before, and if you would have helped the town or let them perish. And if you can name the work that I'm referencing in this video, you get some cool points.
Time is up. I'm gonna need you to get up.
My wife talked about this video the other day, but I feel like she didn't really tell you guys the scary part about it. And you know I'm from Haiti, right? Let me go ahead and share a story with you guys about the dead. But before I start, there's a reason why when someone passes away, they have a saying that said, "Rest in peace." I see that so many of you guys probably don't not understand what rest in peace mean. But rest in peace is basically this person is no longer alive, is no longer with us as the living. That person died now. Now it's time for them to rest in peace without anybody bothering them. Pay attention to this. The last time to send flower to the dead is the day after the funeral. That's the last day of saying goodbye. After that, this person, you should no longer attach to this person. I have a wife, I have kids too. I don't know when I'm gonna die, and I don't know what's gonna happen. We all lost someone that we love. But once the person pass away and they bury that person, let them rest in peace. Haiti is the only country that I know for sure. I know there's some country in Africa, they don't let the dead rest in peace. But Haiti is the only country I know for sure that dead do not rest in peace. The reason why I said that, I told you that before. My sister was dead and she was brought back to life. That's the reason why I said Haiti is the only country that dead don't rest in peace. Because once you die, the person feel like it's not done. Sometimes they bring you back. But she got lucky. My uncle did it. But I know that there are some people that that pass away in Haiti, and when their family went to the graveyard to visit them, the dead is missing. That happens so many times. But we don't really say rest in peace in Haiti, because sometimes, and I also know another story about a dude, a guy owes him money. And the guy who owed the other person money, that guy passed away. And this dude, when he learned that this guy passed away with his money, he went back to the cemetery, break up everything, even the casket, and slapped the guy like 3 times because he was so broke. He needed his money back. He had to beat up on the dead. That means in Haiti, people, there's no rest in peace for you. I get that. But now let's talk about this video that I just showed you that guys earlier, about this girl saying time is up, you need to wake up. You do not do stuff like that. The reason why you don't do stuff like that, it's because once the person die and that person been buried, when you go on the grave saying time is up, you need to wake up, there's evil spirit in the cemetery. Sometimes these evil spirit are smart just like us. Sometimes they follow you all the way home and looking like your loved one. In your mind, you think, "Oh my God, I was just talking to my husband, grave, and look, my husband is here. He's in the womb." And you think this is your husband. This is not your husband. People, y'all need to be careful. Once the person die, you guys bury that person. The day at the funeral, you say whatever you want to say to the dead. After that, let them go. Rest in peace. Leave them alone. Sometimes crazy spirit follow you. Thinking that, okay, this is your mom, this is your husband, this is your wife, this is your daughter, this is your son. It's not them. The evil spirit take their face and follow you home in your mind, thinking that this is your husband, this is my wife, and that's not you. And that same crazy spirit, sometimes they end up on a live view. If you're watching this video, don't go to the cemetery again. Another thing I wanted to share with you guys, once you have someone who passed away in your home, the clothes that that person used to wear, the plate that that person used to eat, the cup they used to drink, get rid of them. Do not leave them in the house. The moment that you still have this stuff in the house, the spirit, that person's spirit stays with you forever. I'm here to advise you guys. My grandma passed away a long time ago. I used to go visit my grandma at the cemetery. But every time I do that, there's always an evil spirit that follows me home. I always think that this is my grandma. But there was one time I had a visit from my grandma and I didn't go to the cemetery. And she told me, "Stop going to visit me." I thought that I was dreaming. We had a great conversation. Before she left, she gave me something. And when I woke up in the morning, the thing that she gave me was in my hand. I'm like, damn, I was not dreaming. But she told me, "Stop going to the cemetery." And I stopped. I went to the cemetery for my personal reason, but not to visit my grandma, not to talk to my grandma. If I wanted to talk to my grandma right now, I know what to do. I'm not going to the cemetery. But anyway, people, stay away from the dead. Let them rest in peace. Don't talk about them no more. Don't wear their clothes. Get rid of them, because this person is no longer with you guys. I lost so many people too. Sometimes I think about them. But guess what? We all gonna die one day. It don't matter how hard we try. That's why the best advice I can give you guys tonight before I go to sleep: enjoy your mom while she's alive. Enjoy your dad, your brother, your sister, your husband, your kid, your wife. Because there's one day you're going to get up and this person is going to be no longer with you. And you're going to have to say goodbye. That's why I make sure every day I kiss my wife 1 billion times. I don't know when I'm leaving this place, this planet, and I don't know when she's leaving. I do the same thing for my kids. I told them that I love them every day because there's one day I'm not gonna be there anymore. They're not gonna be there anymore. I don't know who's leaving first. Enjoy the living now. Let the dead rest in peace.
Okay, so for starters, this is a little bit different from the original content that I do post on my TikTok, but I feel as though somebody gotta hear this story, bitch. So this is about a time that me and my friends walked into what we felt like was a satanic ritual downtown LA. So I had just moved to Inglewood, California to be exact in October of 2019, and this specific incident took place in March of 2020. This is around spring break. Originally, me and my friend was supposed to go to Miami, but some shit ended up taking place, so they decided to come to California for a week instead. And because I'm fairly new to California, I use this app to find places and stuff like that. Whether it's a club, bar, somewhere out to eat, somewhere fun to go, I would use this specific app. So when my friends, they finally get there, everything is all good, we're having a great time, and into their third day of being there, my homeboy was like, hey y'all, let's go get tattoos. So me being me, I'm like, baby, you ain't gotta say a fuck thing else, let's go. So I get on this app that I normally use and I find a tattoo shop that's nearest to us. This one happened to be the one that is located downtown Los Angeles. It was about a 25 to 30-minute drive. Not that far, but because of traffic, it was far. Mind you, the location that we booked, when we got there, the Uber driver was like, the exact address doesn't have like car access. There's no like street access, so you guys have to get out and walk. With it being LA and we know like some of the streets are crowded, we was like, okay, cool, that's fine. So we get out and walk. It's about 2 blocks over and then down this alley, but the alley seemed as though it had other businesses on the street because we weren't the only people walking on the strip. So I finally pull out my phone. I'm like, okay, y'all, this is the building right here. The picture matched the building, but remind you, the ad that was on the app, it didn't have any reviews. But I was like, okay, it could be new and upcoming. That's totally fine. We still gonna go. We done paid our money to get here. Let's go. So the windows to the building were spray painted jet black, as if you cannot see in, and if you were in the inside, you cannot see out. And the doors to the building were like these heavy ass arch doors. And the doors are white, the windows are black. So I didn't have the strength to open these motherfucking doors. So my 2 homeboys, they like, y'all move back. We got it. So they open the door. The doors are heavy as fuck, mind you. We finally get through these doors and we have to pull the doors open. And as soon as you get into the room, there's like 3 footsteps worth of space, and then it turns directly into a incline of stairs. And when I say the stairs are steep, they're fucking steep. It's like it went from the 1st floor directly to the 3rd floor. There was no 2nd floor. And the painting in this fucking room was seamless. One, there were no windows. It's like the windows that were behind us did not exist because they were spray painted jet black on the inside and outside. The stairs were black, the wall was black, the ceiling was black, and there was a light at the top of the ceiling, but the room was so black that it's as if the light was not really there. It didn't shine any other color but the darkness of the room. So the door finally closes behind us, and we're talking as we're walking up the steps, and all you can hear is the echo of our footsteps and the echo of our voice. But we was like, you know what, bitch, we already here. Let's go. So we get to the top of the steps, and this time, instead of you having to pull the doors open, you have to push the doors open. And before we could even open the door, there's this music that was catchy, but we couldn't make out what the fuck it was. Like, it's as though the music was mesmerizing, but you couldn't understand what the fuck it was. So we finally opened the doors. I shit y'all not. When we opened the doors, there was this big, spacious, rectangle studio. The floors were like a glossy, all white. the walls were white and the ceiling were white, and there were like bright white lights everywhere. Even the furniture in this fucking room was bright white. Even the pillars that were centered in the middle of the studio was bright white. There was a few things that was not white, but because it wasn't white, it made it stand out. So there were like carcasses of like dead animals that were on the wall, on different places on the wall. Majority of these animals did have horns. And on each animal, smack dead in the middle of the motherfucking forehead, was a symbol. It was a circle and it was a star, but it wasn't a 5-point star. And these symbols were painted in black. That was the first thing I noticed. And then if you shift your attention a little bit over this way, right here on the Bible, God strike me down if I'm lying, there were about 7 to 9 people that were in a circle. They were in this circle, and on the floor was that same symbol. The black symbol, the circle with the star. But this time, the star that was on the floor, each point of the star was lit with a candle. And in the physical realm, I would have hauled ass. But it's like whatever music that was playing had all of us lined up, stuck in a fucking trance. And I'm like, can't fucking move. And I can only move my eyes, and I'm looking at this group surrounded, like they had cloaks on, and the cloaks were fucking black, and the top of the cloaks were pointy, but the face was covered. Like you couldn't see this part of the face, only like this part. The cloak hung down like this, where you can see this much of their profile. And in the center of this fucking circle was a man that was naked, and he was pale as fucking cocaine on the floor with a white pair of underwear on. But he was sitting like on his knees, if that makes sense. And he had his fucking head down. And it took my homegirl to say, what the fuck? For me to snap out of that fucking trance and realize what the fuck was going on. And it's like I fucking grew angel wings, bitch. Cause the way I flew down the motherfucking flights of stairs, it's like them hoes never existed. Like I floated. I don't even know how the fuck I got down them stairs without breaking my fucking neck. That's how fast I was running. So after we get outside, we shaking the fuck up. We're shook on what the fuck we was just about to experience. So we like, yeah, let's go home, and we cutting out activity. We didn't want to do anything for the rest of the day. So we get home, and we was all really kind of shaking up that we really didn't even want to talk about it neither, because we all were trying to make sense of what the fuck we just saw, what the fuck we walked into. And it's like the music that was playing was still fucking playing. So it comes to the end of the vacation. This is like the day before they're about to leave. And one of the guys, my homeboy, I love him to death. He's mixed, but he's more than he is. So he was like, y'all, I can't really just go home without knowing what the fuck was going on. Like, that just don't sit well with me. So I'm like, yeah, let that hoe go by himself. So in the end, they end up talking me into going with them. So y'all, we go back. The scariest thing is, y'all, it's as if we had walked into a fucking portal. It's as if the fucking place was never there. And what I mean is, the windows that were once black were a sparkly fucking white. On top of it, this new place was a boutique. The boutique was up and running, had customers, it was fully furnished. No stairs. And it was the same exact address. But it's as if the place that we had originally went to was demolished, or it was used as a setup. And to this day, I shit y'all not, I cannot go back in my iCloud and find the app. And I've had the same iCloud since even before then. I cannot find the app. And then even when I try to Google tattoo shops that are in the area, I can't even find the place. So to this day, it's still a mystery for all of us. And even scarier is that same mesmerizing sound. Sometimes it still plays in my head. I I don't know the meaning of it, but that's my story. Tell me what y'all think.
There's a creator on here, I'll tag her down below, that believes that there are portals at Walmart. And as far-fetched as that sound, I can 100% confirm that she is in fact right. I shared this story a while back on here, but for those of you guys who haven't heard it, I'll give you a quick little rundown. I was working night shift around this time. On this day, I happened to get out of work early, which meant it was about 3 a.m. 3 a.m. was my favorite time to go grocery shopping because I knew there was no one at Walmart. So I pulled up to the Walmart parking lot. There's no other cars there, which was a little odd, but I didn't really think much of it because it was 3 a.m. As I'm making my way out of my car and walking towards the entrance, these 3 ladies just randomly appear out of nowhere. They just started walking in with me. Thought it was a little weird, but at first I'm like, well, maybe they just walked here, or I don't know. When I looked over at these 3 females, they looked as if they had crawled out of a sewer. Like, it was something that I had never seen before. But again, wasn't gonna judge. I decided to kind of just go my way, and they went their way. As I'm walking in, I noticed there's a person at the cash register, but there's nowhere else. So I'm still making my way towards the back when I noticed that these 3 girls are now following me. At first, I was just like, oh, they must just be going the same way. But I noticed that they're like kind of grouped together, like whispering to each other. And at one point, I hear what one of them says my name. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, how the hell did they know my name? Mind you, I had just gotten out of the hospital, so I check and I'm like, make sure I'm not wearing my ID, and I wasn't. So I'm like, how do they know my name? So I'm like, okay, this is weird. I decided to hide in like the women's department to try to like lose them so they would just go away and leave me alone. So I'm like in the women's department, kind of like bent down. I see one at the corner of my eye come around and goes, there she is. The minute she said that, the other 2 started to laugh, but this like eerie laugh, and I kicked into like a fight or flight mode where I knew that I was in danger and I needed to get as far away from these people as I possibly could. I decided to run to the front of the store where the cash register person had been when I walked in, but when I went over there was no one in sight. I ended up just throwing my cart to the side, like whatever I was buying could wait, and I decided to run for the front door. As I'm running out, I see these 3 ladies like following me closely. I make it to my car, I get in, I shut the door, and I kind of just like peel out of the parking lot. When I look back through like the rear view mirror, I no longer see them, even though they were just chasing me like right behind me. I drive off and I make it all the way home, but on my way home I keep hearing like whispering and laughing coming from my back seat. Once I make it home, I have the worst freaking nightmares and like sleep paralysis. Like, these ladies continue to like mess with me and like taunt me for like days after that experience, and that all just happened from me walking into Walmart at 3 in the morning. Have you ever had a paranormal experience from going to Walmart late at night? Because I cannot be the only one.
I used to work in a morgue for 10 years, and the weirdest, scariest thing I ever saw was this one cadaver, as we call them, a body basically. It was my job to clean them up and make their faces clean the blood off, make them look presentable for their families to identify them, you know, if there's been a major trauma. And this one cadaver, I noticed her eye was twitching, so I lifted the lid and there was a fucking maggot in there. A live maggot, so obviously you can't have that. So I got the tweezers, I tried to get in there, but the maggot was trying to embed itself further in. Her eye was doing that, and the maggot was trying to embed itself under the eye. So I had to go and get it, and I was literally an inch away from this lady's face, like that, just trying to get this fucking maggot. All of a sudden, her mouth slowly opened like this, as wide as it can go, like that. And I was like, what the fuck? And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she went, and I'm not kidding you, I fucking legged it out of that room. I never knew a noise like that could come from another human being, especially a fucking dead one. Legged it out, got my superior, came back, and she was normal again. The maggot was still there. We had to get the maggot out, but that's quite normal actually. But her mouth was closed and she was just lying there. My boss wouldn't believe me. She sent me home. Thought I was fucking drunk or on drugs. Never went back to work. I worked there 10 years. And I've spoken to people, I've spoken to doctors since then, and none of them believe me. They say you must have seen something else, because that is physically, biologically impossible. A dead body cannot do that. But I know exactly what I saw. It fucking haunts my dreams. I have nightmares about it. It's something that I can't ever on C.
I'm gonna try this for the second time because when I recorded the first time, it was no audio recorded. But now I'm just gonna speed it up. This is what happened when the ghost followed me home from New Orleans. When we were leaving New Orleans and we were all in the car, I felt that there was a man with me, and I told everybody in the car there was a man with us, and we all did our own little separate prayers to try to get him to go ahead and stay where he was at, and he couldn't come with us, right? Of course, sometimes it doesn't always work depending on the people that you're around and all that. So I get back to Atlanta. About 3 or 4 days after that, things start moving around in my house, okay? One, I start realizing that there's somebody peeking around corners in here like this. And I would see shit like this. So after seeing that a lot, I started to acknowledge the spirit, like, who are you? What do you want? Get out, you know? And then it started touching stuff in here. So this was me and my girlfriend was going through this where we would be sitting somewhere alone and things start moving around in the house. There was a time where I was sitting over here on this couch, and all the way across the room over here, I saw my shoe slowly lean and fall off of something. There was a different time I was sitting right here on the couch, and you see that bag over there? That bag is hooked onto some clips. It unhooked itself and fell to the floor. Dead silent in here. I'm chilling, sitting on the couch by myself, and I just have to look up and be like, stop touching shit, right? So this was the ongoing thing for about a week and a half in my house. Was like things were moving around. They didn't have no business moving around. And I talked to my girlfriend about it. She had been seeing something walking around in the house. Things had been moving around, and she had felt something poke her. Now, this is when I knew that it was getting serious. I could feel him, and I could see things about him in my mind's eye. I could see what he looked like. I could see about how old he was. I could see what his energy was like. I could see what he was wearing. So I was starting to get a feel and an idea for him and like why he was around. Wasn't a bad guy at all, kind of like a guy that like died young in his early 20s, and I was just the only light that he could see in that area, so he followed me all the way home. But I was laying in the room, right? I went to go take a nap. My girlfriend told me like, go ahead and take a nap. So I went in the room to take a nap. She was out here in the kitchen where I'm currently at. I'm in the bedroom on the end of the bed taking a nap, right? Laid underneath her like this extra little blanket or whatever, just laying on the end of the bed. I felt her walk into the room, and you know, you can kind of hear the air change or whatever, like when somebody's coming close to you. I felt her and heard her walk into the room, and it felt like she walked into the room, looked at me, noticed I was asleep, and then touched my head and gave me a kiss and walked out. Now, when I heard her walk in the room, I woke up. My eyes was closed, but I woke up. I thought she was going to ask me something. So I woke up, and I felt the fingertips touch the back of my head, and I felt my head kind of get this weird little tingle on the inside, and I felt the really, really light. And I turned directly around, and the room was empty. So I sat up, and I said, oh, okay. Came out here and noticed she was in the kitchen. Told her what happened as soon as it happened, right? So after that, I honestly sat in here one day when he started moving shit around again and fucking with the lights. Like, he was making the lights flicker and stuff. So I told him that he had to leave. But the thing about me is I don't just like banish spirits to go and you know, haunt somebody else. I send you on your way. So I called in my angels and my spirit guides and my ancestors to come in and help this guy move on if he was willing to do so. And he was willing to do so. He just didn't know where to go or how to do it. So we helped him. He moved on. He's gone. My house is clean. That was the spirit I brought with me from New Orleans. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this experience. If you went to New Orleans and brought something back with you, if you're from New Orleans, if you've ever been haunted, if you're a medium, whatever, let me know in the comments.
Hey guys, so this story is about my twin sister. So after my twin sister died, so me and my mom, we went up there, and my baby sister, we went up to where she was. They had a body, and we went to view the body and had made arrangements for the funeral home in Mobile to go pick her up. And so we had to go clean our apartment out. So me and my mom knew, I told my mom I was going to raise her kids, and so we had to look for her kids' birth certificate and social security card. So me and my mom looking, and my sister, we all looking while we packing up stuff, but we couldn't find it. And I was like, we was just so emotional, we was just ready to pack the stuff up and just leave. So I told my mom, don't worry about it. I'll just go to Board of Health and get another copy of birth certificate and go to Social Security office and get another copy of their Social Security card. And I was like, let's just go. So we packed everything up, came back to my apartment in Montgomery. And so I had a lot of family members came at my apartment, so I didn't feel like being bothered. So while everybody was up front, I just went in my room and shut the door. And I was just leaning against the wall. I remember sitting in the corner and just crying. And I had brought one of the suitcases where I had all her kids' stuff in my room. So I'm just sitting there crying, and just like in a state of shock. And I heard my sister's voice so loud and clear. Yeah, I'm not going crazy. And she was like, "Hey, Kiki, get up and look in the side pocket of the suitcase." And I was like, "No, I don't feel like moving." And my sister was like, "Okay, but I need you to get up and look in that pocket." And I was like, "You did not hear me?" Now, mind you, just me in the room, but I heard my sister. I said, "I don't feel like getting up." I said, "I just viewed your body. You gone." I said, "I'm mad. You're not here anymore. I don't feel like getting up." My sister said, "Girl, just get your butt up and just do what I say." She started hollering at me. So I was like, "Wait a minute. Girl, I don't care if you're dead or not. You ain't gonna be hollering at me." So now I'm hollering like, "Don't you raise your voice at me. I don't care about you hollering at me." So now I'm hollering. So, and my sister, "Just get up and just look in the suitcase." And so, I'm hollering back, "Don't you holler at me." So, so I heard a knock on my door. So it was my kids, my cousin, auntie. They was like, "You okay? Who you hollering at?" I said, "Mika, she up in here hollering at me like she my mama." I said, "Y'all don't care. She don't be raising her voice at me." So now they looking at me like, "What?" I said, "She up in here hollering at me. She lost her doggone mind." So they was like, "Okay." So they shut the door and they went on back up front. And so I got mad. So I went over there to the suitcase. And so I'm going through the pockets. And guess what it was? It was the birth certificate and Social Security cards up in the side pocket of the suitcase. And I was like, "Oh." And I heard my sister said, "Next time, just do what I tell you." And I said, "Next time, don't you be hollering at me." And so, and I heard her chuckle. And she said, "Bye." And I started crying because I knew I wasn't going to hear her voice no more. But she come to me regularly in my dream. But that was the time my sister hollered at me and she was gone.
I didn't think this story was gonna be as scary as it was, but it definitely is, so let me just start. So this guy says that when he was younger, one of his distant aunts passed away. He says that he really didn't know her, but he could tell the big impact that her death made on the family. Since they all traveled into the town that she passed away at, they sent him to go and spend the night with his cousins. He explains how they weren't gonna stay at the cousin's house, but at their cousin's grandmother's house. He had never met their grandmother until then, and he explains how she was really nice and even asked him to call her Mama Carmen. And no, it was not his grandmother. He was related to the uncle. The aunt was by law married and his aunt, so it was the mom's mom, so not his grandmother, but his cousin's grandmother. I hope that makes sense. He explains that Mama Carmen's house was really big and it was made out of wood and it was so pretty, but he knew that there was just something off or weird about it. So when nighttime came, they directed him to this really big room in the house, and the older cousin said something to him that just like threw him off. Before walking out of the bedroom, his cousin tells him, "Hey, whatever you do, just don't respond to them." And he was like, "What? What do you mean?" And the cousin tells him, "Just don't respond to the voices. Don't respond to the thing that's gonna talk to you from under the bed." Bitch, if you think I was about to stay there, I'm gonna go wherever you're going after that, because what the hell? However, he knew his cousins and how much they play around, all the pranks they've done on him in the past. So he was just like, "Ugh, this is another prank, so whatever, yeah, I won't listen to the voices." He also admits that when his cousins would stay at his house, he would also scare them, so obviously he just thought this was a joke. So he ends up falling asleep and then wakes up to a voice calling him by his name, Felipe. He thought he was dreaming, but as he opened his eyes, he could have sworn that he heard that last little Felipe. Not me giving myself goosebumps right now. So he's laying there very still, awake, and hears nothing. And as he's drifting off to sleep again, he hears that voice again, Felipe. This time, he recognized the voice calling him by name. It had been a very long time since he had heard that voice. It was almost like he had forgotten what that voice sounded like, and it was because it was his mom's voice. His mother, who was no longer living. He immediately gets up and starts walking towards the door. He says he doesn't even want to look back. He doesn't even have the courage to look back and see what is underneath the bed, but he exits the room. However, when he finally makes it to the door where his cousins were sleeping, he said that he felt embarrassed. He thought to himself, if I go in there and tell them that I'm scared or tell them that I heard voices, they're never gonna let it go. I'm gonna have to hear this for the rest of my life, and he didn't want to deal with that. He said that it took him a minute to grow some courage, but but he just turned around and went right back to the bedroom that he was sleeping in. He walks down the hallway, goes into the room, lays down, and he's laying there for a good minute. And finally, he is drifting off to sleep, and that is when he hears the voice again. Felipe, I forgive you. You have nothing to forgive me for, he said, half asleep, responding to the voice. You wish for me to die, but I forgive you. The voice responded. So this is where Felipe finally starts telling us a story about what happened with his mom back when she was alive. And he says that he has to confess something that he had never told anyone. His mom was really sick, so sick that she fell into like some sort of paralysis on her body. And he had to take care of the mom because the dad basically abandoned them when this happened because he couldn't deal with it. So can you imagine, like, the mom fell into paralysis, the dad left because he just couldn't deal with it, and he left his son to take care of a fully grown adult. He does say that the dad did continue to send them money to help out around the house, but he never showed up. He stopped playing outside with the neighborhood kids. He stopped doing his homework. He didn't go to school anymore. And all he did all day long, 24/7, was to take care of his mom. And he admits that at that time, he really hated his life and everybody who was in it. And yes, it's true. He really wished for his dad to die for doing this to him, but he also admits that he wished for his mom to die as well. He says that he doesn't wish her dead the same way he wished his dad dead. He wished her dead just so that she can get some peace, so that she wouldn't be in pain, and so that he can also just be a kid again. And he says that it was really hard to take care of her because she couldn't eat by herself, she couldn't shower by herself, she couldn't even go to the restroom. So it was things that he had to do for her, and it was a lot. But that desire for his mom to die was something that he never told anyone, not a single soul. And this is in fact the very first time that he's writing this down for this podcast to share with the world. So we go back to the voice telling him that she forgives him for wishing her dead. He is more asleep than awake when he asks for forgiveness to the voice that sounds like his mom. He admits that he doesn't know if it was really his mom or what was underneath that bed, but because of what the voice said, he wanted to ask for forgiveness, and he actually put his hand down underneath the bed. He didn't know what he expected. He didn't know if he expected somebody to grab his hand, for someone to say that he's forgiven, but he put his hand down there and actually fell asleep with his hand just hanging there. After falling asleep, he was awoken by a weird sound, and when he opened his eyes, it's when he felt a sensation of something touching his hand. He explains how the hand felt really rough, and it was definitely coming from underneath that bed. At first, he thought he was dreaming, but no, this was definitely not a dream. He was definitely awake. So by this point, the hand was already grabbing at his chest, and he was terrified. He said his heart was beating so fast. However, his curiosity won over the fear that he was feeling. So he literally moved to the edge of the bed and looked to see what was coming out from underneath the bed. What he saw was this very long, gray, old-looking hand coming from underneath that bed. It was fucked up. It was scary. As he was looking at the hand, he could see his hand next to that other hand, so he knew he was awake, but he couldn't take in what he was seeing. It was a lot, and it was crazy. He said at that point, his body became very cold. He was very stiff, and he can still look at his hand and at the hand grabbing at it now, like they're trying to pull him down. And in that very moment, as he's being pulled down, the voice is saying, I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. Over and over again. It was at this moment that voice completely changed. It didn't even sound like his mom's voice anymore, and it sounded like it was making fun of him. So now the voice was like mocking him, saying, do you forgive me? Do you forgive me? Like over and over. He said that the way the voice changed was like it was using his mom's voice, and then all of a sudden it was just not his mom at all. So like it was trying to trick him. For some reason, this reminds me of Leprechaun. Have you guys seen it? Where like his voice changes. That was also the moment where he remembered what his cousin told him. If a voice is talking to you, do not respond. He wanted to take that advice, so he decided to stay quiet, but at that moment, it was too late. He had already talked back to the voice. Without knowing what to do, he said that he literally bit his mouth so that he wouldn't talk anymore, closed his eyes, and just stayed very still. He even tried to like let go of the hand that was holding him, but the more he tried to let go of the hand, the more the hand was trying to pull him underneath the bed. Felipe, let me go. Felipe, I'm getting scared. I can't do it. Felipe, let me go. Felipe, let me go. That's what the voice was telling him now. He finally understood that that was not his mom. That was not his mom's ghost. That was not his mom at all. It was actually the complete opposite of what his mom was. So he fought. He said that he fought for the longest time. He tried to hit. He tried to hold on to the bed. He was not about to let this thing drag him under. And he was successful because it finally like let go of his hand from all the fighting that he was doing. And when that happened, he immediately turned to like the side of the bed where the wall is, where that thing cannot reach him. He said that he sat there next to the wall on the bed, just like waiting for a hand to come up and try to get him again. And it was like the longest silence he had ever experienced. But that was also when the sun finally came out and he heard somebody in the kitchen. He literally jumped off the bed to the door into the kitchen, and it was Mama Carmen that was in there. He told Mama Carmen everything that had happened in the bedroom the entire night. He admits that she never interrupted him. She heard everything he had to say. When he finally finished telling her what happened, she just looked at him, smiled at him, and said, "You shouldn't give anything that much importance." That surely it was a hallucination or he was dreaming. That maybe it was because of him going to the cemetery and funerals because of that aunt that passed away that might have caused him to hallucinate or have these types of dreams. She also asked him not to pay attention or to listen to his cousins because they're little scaredy cats and they also love scaring people but were scared as well. She told Felipe that they used to sleep in that bedroom and then didn't want to sleep in that bedroom anymore, so maybe they made it up so that no one could sleep in there. Sorry, what? You're telling me that they've experienced this, but you're saying they made it up because what? She said that she believes that they made up this story so that they can move out of that bedroom and somebody else occupy the space that they were always scared to sleep in. He admits that he would have loved to believe her saying that they made this up, but how would they explain the voice? How could he explain the things that the voice was saying that only he knew? Now I'm curious as to what his cousins experienced in that room because it's obvious that they've experienced something. He was like, there's no way that they could have pranked me with my mom's voice and saying things that I had never told anybody. So yeah, she doesn't want me to be scared, but I believe my cousins and I believe they experienced something in there. He also says that he's never gonna forget what that hand looked like. Like, that was not a dream. That was not something that he dreamt of. He was awake and he was there. But man, I would not know what to do if that happened to me. What do you guys think?
One of the scariest things that ever happened to me while babysitting, story time. Now, I was 15. I've been babysitting for a few years at this point, so I had a lot of experience with kids. They love me. Well, a family friend asked if I would go babysit their 7-year-old son for a couple of days while they went out of town to Myrtle Beach, so I said sure, that was great money for me. So the parents put their bags in the car, they showed me where everything is. Now, his mom made it clear to me that he has a very active imagination and that because his daddy let him watch horror movies the week prior, he's been having nightmares and making things up, saying that he's been seeing stuff around the house that's not there. So they get their stuff in the car, they give their son a kiss, and they leave. So I'm flipping through all the satellite channels, you know, checking out different shows, eating popcorn, little boy's playing with his toys, drinking his little juicy juice, and we're just having a good time. So I go in the kitchen to put a frozen pizza in the oven, and all of a sudden, this little boy comes flying out the living room, running up to me, and then wraps around my leg, just looking in the living room and then looking at me, back and forth. I said, "Damn, son, are you okay? What happened?" He said, "She's in there, she's in there." I said, "Who's in there?" He said, "Her," but I didn't see nothing. And before I can push him any further, he walks over and sits in front of the TV and starts ignoring me. We're sitting on the couch watching TV, and their couch was in the middle of the room, so you could walk around it. Well, this little boy starts looking behind the couch and then back at the TV. So I start looking back behind us. You know, it's like a natural reaction when you see somebody else doing that, you start doing it. The more he did this, the more I felt like somebody was standing behind us, but I don't see anything. So I get up and walk across the room, and from there I can see the hallway, and for a second, something stood out to me. At the end of the hallway, it looked like someone was peeking around the corner like this. But when I cut the light on, it was gone, so I thought my mom was playing tricks on me. My anxiety's peaking, so I'm like, okay, it's the first time you've been left alone in someone else's house. Calm down, go take a shower and go to bed. But while I'm taking a shower, I get the weirdest feeling like somebody's standing outside of the shower curtain. Now, they had a big-ass bathroom, so I was like, dude, it's a new place, it's a big bathroom, you're not used to this. Just stop freaking out. But I have to keep sticking my head out the shower curtain to make sure nobody's there because I'm getting that vibe like somebody is there. So I peek out the shower again and bam, this kid is standing in the doorway crying. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "It's gonna get me. It's in there. I just saw it. Can I stay here with you? I'm scared." I said, "Yes, stay right there. Just turn the other way." And then I dry off and get dressed in the shower so he can't see me. Now it's about 11 o'clock at this point and he's still wide awake. So we sit there and talk for a little while. We play with Legos, Play-Doh. I'm just trying to wear him out so he'll go to sleep. Well, finally around 2 a.m., he falls asleep. Now, it was already so late, I didn't have time to unpack my clothes, so I just get in the bed and I go to sleep. About 10 minutes later, I hear this youngin' screaming again. Before I can even get out the bed, I hear him thunk, 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 and he's already running into my room, jumps into bed with me. He's screaming to the top of his lungs, she's there in my room behind the door. She's gonna get me if I'm alone. Please don't make me go back in there. So we're laying there in the bed together, and he says, I know you think I'm making stuff up. I promise you I'm not. She was there. I saw her. I said, honey, I believe you. It's okay. Just relax and close your eyes and start taking some deep breaths. This child has one hell of a grip on me. Like, he's wrapped around me like a python, so I could tell he was really scared. Like, he really thought something was gonna snatch his ass off that bed. So I just held him and hoped that maybe he would calm down. Now, I know a lot of you would just tell these kids to hush and go to bed, but I'm not like that. I went through the same thing as a child. I would see things that were not there, and nobody else believed me. So I wanted him to know that I believed him and I was protecting him. So I reached over to the nightstand and I tapped that old school touch lamp 3 times and put it on the brightest setting so it lit up the room. That way we would feel more safer and we'd get some sleep. Then I start hearing some distant thunder, and then it starts pouring rain. I think, oh, well, that sounds relaxing. So because of that storm, my ass knocked out. I was doing some good sleeping until about 30-40 minutes later. That was when I abruptly woke up to the bed shaking. It felt like a small tremor, like a little earthquake. So I'm trying to get my eyes adjusted and wake up and figure out, why is the bed shaking? Apparently the storm knocked the power out because it was pitch black dark in that room, and the only time I could see anything was when the lightning struck. Well, once my head gets adjusted, I start hearing a noise, like chattering of teeth. I'm laying there trying to figure out what the hell is that noise and what is shaking the bed. And that's when I look over and I see the little boy is sitting up on the other side of the bed with his hands holding the cover, and it's him shaking the bed. He's shaking that hard. And that chattering sound I heard was coming from his teeth. He was sitting here holding the covers with his eyes wide open and going, God, are you okay? Because I thought he was having a seizure, but when I looked at him, his eyes darted over to mine, and I realized he was awake. He was so scared. Like, he couldn't move. He was frozen, shaking and chattering. I'm like, well, if he's not having a seizure, what is wrong with him? And that's when it clicks. He's sitting here staring at the door, so I look at the door. Y'all, let me tell you, in that moment, when that lightning flashed, I damn near shit my pants. It scared me so bad. Have you ever been so scared that your hands and arms and legs start tingling, they damn near go numb? When I looked at that bedroom door, there was someone's head peeking around the door like this, and you could only see their eyes. And when the lightning stopped flashing, I couldn't see anything anymore. It was complete darkness. That was when it really hit me. Holy crap, we're not alone. There's someone else in the house, and they're standing right there. But what really freaked me out was every time the lightning would strike, I could see more of that person's face. Like, it started like this, and then this, and this, and then I could see their actual mouth. This person was smiling ear to ear. I could barely take a breath in. All I could think was, what the hell is that thing? Then, of course, the lightning stopped flashing, so for a few seconds, it was completely dark, and I had that feeling again like someone was watching us and getting closer and closer, and I was starting to panic. And when lightning struck a few seconds later, I could tell they were getting closer, because now this motherfucker, person, thing, or whatever, was now at the foot of the bed, peeking over like this, staring at us. At this point, my damn teeth were chattering. All I could hear was between the both of us. So I pulled that little boy up on my lap in my arms as tight as I could, because I didn't want whatever it was to try to snatch him out of my arms, and I held him real tight. So now when the lightning flashed, we could see its whole face peeking over the bed, smiling, looking right at us. So that was when fight or flight kicked in for me, and I remember the dad telling me that he'd put a loaded pistol in the nightstand and behind the headboard of this bed, so I start reaching around for it. And for some reason, my gut was telling me, you better keep your eyes on this thing. Every time the lightning strikes, pinpoint where it is with your eyes and don't take your eyes off or it's gonna jump. Reaching, trying to multitask, keep my eyes on it, hold the little boy, and feel around for this pew-pew, and I finally feel it, and I snatch it out of that holster and I hold it up. When the lightning struck, I pointed at this thing. I said, if you take another step, I'm gonna blow you into the next room. Get out and leave now. In that moment, something happened. I don't know what it was, but I could feel me looking into it and it looking into me, and that lightning flashed, and then all of a sudden the power cut back on. And no lie, as soon as the power came on, it was gone. I snatched him up out of the bed, grabbed that pew-pew, and ran to the kitchen and called 911. I stayed on the phone with them, the police came, and then I called the parents. I put the cop on the phone, they're talking, and then they tell the cop that they're not coming back until Sunday. Even though we're telling them we think there's an intruder in the house and their child's here, they don't give a shit. They're not coming home. They think it's our imagination playing tricks on us because the power went out and we're getting freaked out with the storm and everything. So I made it very clear I was not staying in their house another minute, and I was going to take their child back to my family's house, and that's where we would be. And they said, okay, fine, we'll see you on Sunday. So I asked the little boy if that was the first time he saw this thing, and he said no. He'd been seeing it for months, but this was the first time it got that close. Now, I knew he'd have to go back to that house, so the next day, me and my cousin went over and cleansed the entire house, hoping it would help.